What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 15th album by Canadian singer Celine Dion. Basically, this project is called Let's Talk About Love, and it came out in the fall of 1997. So this particular album was an iconic 90s album as far as those pitches kind of happen. This is one of the highest selling albums of all time. Definitely had some heralded pitches about it, I'd have to say. Particularly one song, My Heart Will Go On, was a thematic song to like the 90s. Definitely one of the biggest songs of the 90s as far as those pitches kind of particularly happen with it. Pop music, definitely big deal in pop music. Celine Dion had a number of hit albums throughout the 90s, kind of like a more adult contemporary version of Mariah Carey, pitches like that. Same sort of feel, but just a little bit more adult contemporary in mind. Less kind of more rhythmic kind of contemporary, but still some good bops on here to kind of get. But this is an excellent type concept. She had a number of chart topping 90s albums, had some 80s albums, plenty of pitches like that. Just some excellent type concepts here. But yeah, particular the reason why My Heart Will Go On. One of the reasons why My Heart Will Go On was such a large song was one of the reasons why My Heart Will Go On was such a large deal throughout the 90s is because it was attached to like the 90s blockbuster film Titanic from 1997. Pretty excellent pitch. It was the number one. That was pretty much number one for I want to say good chunk of the year. Just particularly just lasted pretty much I want to say between like the fall of 97 to about the spring of 98. It was just one of the massive songs around those particular times. It was emphatic everywhere. Just one back when albums kind of had a lot more replay value than this. You heard, I mean, it was pretty inescapable throughout the late 90s. You may not hear it as much nowadays, but it was definitely a pretty solitary big deal around that particular time. Caused this album to go diamond, went 11 tons platinum. Like I was saying, it's pretty excellent type pitch to kind of get that. But look, after this album does have other hits on here, and I think there's some other ones. In the United States, this album did not do as particularly terrific apart from My Heart Will Go On. I kind of look after it. There were some other singles on here. There were like 6 singles on here, but for the most part, this album was not that connecting in like the United States markets or much like the adult contemporary. I'd say. I mean, it did have some here and there type ones, but out of 6 singles, there really was only one single out of those six, or even so. There was actually a pseudo kind of 7 singles off this project, but only one of them, which was just My Heart Will Go On, really charted with that much appeal. Which I think this album probably, if it had had more charting hits like My Heart Will Go On, I think definitely probably would have went more than just 11 tons platinum. It felt like it kind of got like subterfuged in like a certain kind of way as far as those pitches kind of happen. I mean, in Europe and I think in other places, United Kingdom, places like that, it was definitely a bigger deal with this album. Considering the magnitude of like the particular song, My Heart Will Go On, it just felt like it kind of got a little bit like shoehorned more so than I would have particularly thought. But it's still a pretty excellent album here. This is definitely like the concept behind it. It's kind of underappreciated in today's times. I feel like it's difficult to kind of remember. I do remember like My Heart Will Go On, hearing that a lot in the radio, but I don't really remember too much what happened with Celine Dion afterwards. I know she's had some health problems in recent times, but thinking to like the 2000s, like approximately 20 years ago, just wondering some of the hits that she had back in 2003, 2005, 2007. I just question it. Felt like she's more a product of the 90s more so than like the 2000s, because I definitely don't remember as many hits from her past this particular album. I'd say so that's why I started with this one, just because this is the one I'm most familiar with. But I kind of look after it as the concept that just kind of feel like I do feel like there's probably folks from like recent times and just more contemporary type times that probably know Mariah Carey and pitches like that. But Celine Dion's kind of like the forgotten about sister of Mariah Carey, just in a lot of says I've had to say within that concept. It's just a good, interesting pitch. So it's good to get to some of this. But yeah, I'll look after it. So there were 6 singles, like I was saying, really 7 singles off this particular product. I'll go ahead and talk about another one on here, but I'll have to get to it. So basically, the first single was Tell Him. This is a pretty nice one. I want to say this has Barbara Streisand on there, which is pretty good, though. Just open up pitch, kind of get that. So Tell Him is a real nice one. Basically, out of the 6 singles, or out of the 7 singles, I at least wound up recommending 4. So I liked most of these, but it's just kind of concept about it. So Tell Him is a nice one. It's like a moody kind of dope melodrama. The thing about this particular album is it's very melodramatic-esque. I like the concept about this particular. It's very operatic. This feels like something that you'd listen to in like a Broadway play. Some of those kind of musical and things like that type pitches, just within that more kind of East Coast type bound type stuff. I like the pitch just behind how some of this particular kind of works. I do like the loominess feel. It feels like really something you'd be in like a theater type aspect, something like that. But I do like the overall looming. It is contemporary, but it just has a lot more melodrama towards it that I just don't see a lot of folks really do within those times. It just feels like these would be backdrops to like movies like The Princess Bride with Anne Hathaway, or some of those type pitches, or just things like, obviously you can think of more kid centric type stuff, but just the concept of trying to think of like theater type plays and stuff that would have like something of like Rapunzel, like where she's off the balcony, kind of yearning and those sorts of pitches, Romeo and Juliet-esque, I'd have to say. But some good melodrama, some moody, dope melodrama. There's like an autumn gust of some stuff here. It's like some moody, dope melodrama, autumn gust. I would definitely feel like it's a very steely, fog gazing, kind of uncommon 90s flavor. I'd have to say about this one. It's just like a looming kind of operatic fear about this. I just like the concept. This one in particular is a little bit different from the rest of the tone about this particular album. This does have kind of like a haunting aspect. It's surprising about this, more so than Mariah Carey. I feel like this is like mildly kind of darkly tinged, which I do like the concept of just being able to say, there's some songs on this album like Tell Him, My Heart Will Go On, Immortality, and Us that kind of have like a relatively ghastly type appeal about it, which, back in like the 90s, hearing some of these songs, it would have been more tricky to kind of, it may have been more tricky to kind of catch, but I look after, I do overall like this kind of, it just kind of feels like I do like this haunting kind of groove about it. But I mean, it is, this album is pop. I just look after the looming kind of melodramatic type feel. It just gives a lot of good autumn type flavor that I do like the pitch behind. So it's a pretty dope concept for that. But Be the Man is the second single. It's another nice one. Now, this one's a little bit more contemporary, just in like a more makeshift sense. A lot of this is pretty more lustful yearning just within the pitch, just within the tone of like some melodrama, just the aspect of just like heartbreak and heartache as far as that pitch gun goes. But I feel like Be the Man is a little bit more down to earth within that tone. It's like a brushy kind of residential autumn haze of a song. I would definitely feel like it's modest and simple kickback to kind of get here. Simple around the house, around the neighborhood type flair. I mean, it does have some of that melodrama about this one as well. It's operatic in its tone, but I do like the overall. This is just more kind of contemporary, just more like something Adele would do when she does a song like I'll Be Waiting or He Won't Go, one of those type pitches, just that same sort of tone where it's just, a vast personality like Celine Dion kind of coming down to earth and just being more around the house more so than theater places and just more just more aristocratic. I'd have to say it's like a mild kind of solemn licked. The song is kind of mild, solemn licked about it. I would definitely have to say, and it just has some operatic fare about it. So it's just another good 1-2 punch with some of these. It's unfortunate that this particular song, both Tell Him was not released as a single in the United States, so it didn't get a chance to chart, but it did hit like 58 on like the extra radio charts. There was like another charts for like Billboard 100 charts that kind of had some 90s songs. Like I want to say there was like a Will Smith song that kind of had that problem. I forget what it was, but like Don't Speak by No Doubt kind of had that problem where that didn't actually hit number one despite the overall appeal that it had. But this is kind of a concept that happened with the occasional 90s song, I'd have to say. But some of these, Be the Man didn't really chart either. It's a pretty good pitch for that, but it's a pretty dope song just within that pitch, I'd have to say. But The Reason is the third single. Now, I don't recommend this particular single, but it has like a relative stretchiness about it. It's pretty similar to Be the Man, just not quite as like, it's just more ballad-esque, I'd have to say. It's just kind of the tone behind it. There's a lot of ballads on this particular product. Very much, like I was saying, just wander. It's very much sunset gazing pitches like that, or just kind of more just slow jam-esque, just with like the more tone of like melodrama infused with it. So it's just basically the concept of getting like a 90s R&B type album, something like Boys to Men or one of those type pitches. Genuine, some of those type folks, just with more of like this melodrama and theater esque attached to it. But I didn't have as much appreciation for The Reason. I do like the relative residential brush of Be the Man, but I felt like The Reason was just not as much affable in my taste for it. But I'd have to say it was still relative pitch. I mean, I feel like these songs were at least a big deal in Europe and places like that, but it's just kind of the thing. Now, the mammoth song off this album is My Heart Will Go On. This is the one of the soundtrack songs. I feel like this was a big accompaniment, I think, to why Titanic was such a big deal. That was $1 billion movie back in '97, still one of the highest selling movies of all time, apart from like maybe Avengers and Avatar, some of those particular type movies, I'd have to say. But I look after it, I question if this song had not been attached. Like, I think when you think of like 97, 98, this is a big song that kind of is a part of those particular times. It just was that stretching of a song. It's just really something that kind of had like a lot of impact and very iconic type feel. I question if this song had not been attached to Titanic, if it would have sold nearly as well. I think it kind of it was like a good 1-2 punch that like this Celine Dion album and Titanic kind of went hand in hand back in those days. But I look after this like a large and strengthy kind of melodrama ballad. I would definitely feel like this like an iconic kind of 90s hit. Like I was saying, this like a ghostly kind of spectral casting about it is real good. Kind of looming type feel. Really like the autumn brush about it. I mean, I think this could probably be played in the summer. It's just more of like a memoriam type song. I'd have to say this real after effect of this like it's kind of the concept of like death and pitches like that. But I look after the tone. It just has a lot of good type feels. I mean, it looks distantly, but it's just kind of concept that it does have some appeal. I think it's a deeper song than most songs in today's time is going to get to, but I do like the concept of at least having a song like that because it just has the appeal when you're in the right mood for it. I'd have to say it's just it's a spectral type song that works pretty well, and this is just an overall nice one to kind of get. That's the thing about Celine Dion about this particular product. When you think, okay, she needs a song where she comes down to earth a little bit, she's kind of like a '90s version of Adele, just without like the kind of heartache. I'd have to say it's a little bit more longing on this particular album. I feel like Celine Dion definitely was adult contemporary type charts. Adele had a little bit more mastery of like contemporary type sounds in like the 2010s. But if you take like Adele without the contemporary songs like Set Fire to the Rain and Someone Like You, some of those type pitches, you basically have like a '90s variation of what like this album Let's Talk About Love kind of is. But it is pretty good pitch. I do feel like at least My Heart Will Go On was one of those type ones, but it is a deep song. Immortality is the fifth single. Now this is another nice one here. I do recommend this one. Thing about it is this song didn't chart either, but it is a nice overall bop here. It's a good companion to My Heart Will Go On. It's the same sort of flavor as that one. It's like a stretching kind of ghostly summer gauze of a song. I would definitely feel like it's like a delicate follow up to Heart Will Go On. Like I was saying, it's good pitch, good 1-2 punch. Kind of get those. If you like the flavor of My Heart Will Go On, you like the overall this dissonance, that particular song, and the ghostly kind of ballad feel. That one, it's just like it's just like a basic follow up and sequel to that one. Very similar to My Heart Will Go On. It's just very effective song to kind of get. It's too bad this song didn't chart heavier. It probably seems like folks just probably felt like that song just maybe because it didn't have Titanic attached to it or something like that. Just a concept you just would say, well, if you get two similar songs, why not just listen to the better one? But I feel like Immortality is probably just as good of a song. It's just kind of the concept just didn't really get much of a chance to really showcase that. But it is like a good cousin, kind of have like some further hits in that particular style. So that works for that. And then Treat Her Like a Lady was the sixth single. And I didn't really appreciate this one. This is very Mariah Carey-esque just with an aspect. It's not, I do appreciate Mariah Carey quite a bit, but I just feel like Celine Dion's particular vibe on this particular type of song didn't fit as well for her. It was just trying to be like a '90s kind of dance groove about it. It's an up-tempo kind of picnic and kind of barbecue-esque, this kind of summer hop and bop as far as those pitches kind of happen. But I don't know, it didn't really have the affability as well. I think that might be like a minor snag about Celine Dion. It's just being able to nail some of those up tempo type ones where she's not quite as just like melodramatic and quite as like, more just kind of contemporary and just like a relative sense. It's not so much contemporary that she has a problem with, but just the concept of like something frivolous or something like that. Just the aspect of just like something that's not meant for theater or something more dissonant. I'd have to say just not as depthy. I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept of something that's more hop and bop, something like Usher's Yeah or something like that. One of those type ones that just has the real just face value typeness to kind of get. I look after it, just didn't really have that same pitch, but just didn't really appreciate Treat Her Like a Lady as much. It has tempo about it's like a minor kind of '90s picnic kind of dance hit, but I just didn't really have the affability behind that. I feel like wasn't as strengthy here. That's just kind of the thing about that particular one. So the seventh single was kind of Miles to Go Before I Sleep. This was kind of one that was supposedly released in like not in the United States, I'd have to say, but I look after it. This is another one I don't really recommend. I just would have to say it's just kind of the concept. This one's just kind of like a kind of dreary kind of this traverse type one, just kind of makeshift type one to kind of get like some rainy day, just kind of slog as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. But I just didn't really like the affability behind that one. Not as catchy, just kind of felt like one didn't have as much snap and overall appeal towards it. I think some of these makeshift type ones were necessary, but I feel like the particular vibe just felt like kind of one of those car stretchers that just didn't really have as much full blown appeal about it. But it is one for at least some of that makeshift, just for kind of more day to day type fare, I'd have to say. But so there's 16 songs on this particular album I look after, and out of those 16, I wound up recommending 8. Pretty dope enough pitch, kind of get that. But that's half the album, I'd have to say. But the concept about it is it's actually on the United States edition. Nowadays it seems like there's 16 songs on all the editions, which includes like the 16th song Let's Talk About Love. There actually might be a jumble of different mix-ups with like the 15 song edition pitches like that. But I want to say I'm reviewing the 16 song edition, which the song 14 is Be the Man, song 15 is I Hate You, Then I Love You, and then song 16 is Let's Talk About Love. So that's the Spotify edition. You find this album on Spotify, that's the one you're going to get. So out of those 16 songs, I wound up recommending 8. So the other, basically the 8 songs I recommend would be Tell Him, Be the Man, My Heart Will Go On, Immortality, Amar Hacienda El Amor, Us, Why Oh Why, and Just a Little Bit of Love. So this kind of happens to be a thing about it. So yeah, Amar Hacienda El Amor is a nice one. In particular, in English, this particular song means love, making love. It's dope enough concept, kind of get that. like the fact that it seems like I want to say that Celine Dion might have had a French album out, so it's interesting to say that she might be trilingual or multilingual as far as those pitches going to happen. I wonder about that, but some good concepts here. There's like a nice mid group kind of romantic Sunday and evening haze about this particular song. It's basic kind of kickback of ones like wine bottles, pasta, dinner night, some pitches like that. Simple kind of appeal as far as that would particularly kind of happen. It's just a good charmer. So yeah, it's just like a mild groove one to kind of get. I like the aspect of some of this real this kind of simplistic kind of Sunday evening kickback pitches like that. Just a little bit more adult contemporary in charts as far as that particular kind of goes. It's good flavor to kind of have here. I can't think of too many pop artists that would kind of have this particular type tone and just some basic. I mean, it's kind of like Sugar Ray in a pitch, just some of that type fare, more adult contemporary pop romance as far as that pitch kind of goes. It's definitely some good Sunday evening flavor. I'd have to say just adult contemporary highlights for those pitches will kind of particularly happen. Just simple wine and dine, simple fare like that. Just some easy kind of kickback just to be able to have and good glaze, kind of orange skies kind of evening as far as that would kind of happen. Real good highlight off here, probably one of my more favorite songs off this particular album would be Us. It's like a forlorn kind of romantic R&B evening gauze. I would definitely feel like it's like a darkly tinged kind of standout album flavor. I would definitely have to say about this one. It's like a contemporary kind of melodrama bop to kind of get. So this one need to be more songs like this on this particular album. I feel like the flavor, it's darkly tinged, just like Amar Haciendo El Amor, but it's also kind of within the aspect of being able to say that this is just one that just has like some relative contemporary kind of bite and it's a little bit more like the melodrama on this song is definitely siphoned within the pitch of being able to kind of the melodrama on the song Us is just honed more particularly towards a little bit more contemporary, not quite as much full blown adult contemporary, not quite as like just cultivated just within the pitch behind this has a little bit more snap towards I look within the tone behind it's ghastly within a sense and it's definitely some ghastly pop. You're gonna get that kind of just reminds me of like a more like if Mariah Carey were to do like a darker type song just within the pitch and not I mean it definitely has like the longing within it, just the standard melodrama, but this is the appeal that it just a little bit more has like relative album cut kind of radio appeal about it. So I do appreciate that one. Like I was saying, definitely need to be more songs like this. YOY is pretty highlighted one. It's like a vibey kind of R&B flavored slow groove of a song. I'd have to say this is definitely a more slower jam on here that I appreciate more. A lot, like I said, a lot of ballads, a lot of more just longing, just kind of after hours drip as far as far as those particular pitches kind of happen. This is a good example of some of that where it just nails it effectively better. This reminds me of like contemporary Mariah Carey tinges. So I'd have to say it's like a nice kickback to one. So this is like a slow groove that just has a little bit more snap about it, just within the pitch of just being like it just has more groove. A lot of these are just kind of more. Most of these ones I don't recommend on here are just more sluggish, just within the drawl behind it. But this one just has a little bit of bounce and just little. This has tempo to like its slowness about it, so that's a good concept for that. But then just a little bit of love is another highlighted one. Definitely appreciate this one. It's like a '90s kind of up tempo dance groove. I'd say about this one. Reminds me a little bit of like Mariah song reminds me a little bit of Mariah Carey's Fantasy from '95 pitches like that I'd say, but this is a peppy song, but it's like mildly ghastly I'd have to say about it. It has some the song is peppy, but it has like a mildly ghastly social brush about it. I'd have to say in particular, and this is just like some good autumn snaz about this one. This one is like the song that I definitely feel like Treat Her Like a Lady should have been. If this had been the single instead of Treat Her Like a Lady, I probably would have appreciated a lot more. I would appreciate another single off this product, I'd have to say. This really has some of that type of appeal. It's just basically like a Mariah Carey-esque, this kind of dance groove about this particular one. It's just an up-tempo type one. I do like the fact that Celine Dion was able to nail some of these up-tempo type ones to kind of get here. There are some moments I feel like songs like Us, Just a Little Bit of Love, and Tell Him are like some decent ones that kind of have like some of that kind of gauzy, kind of moody, just melodrama type autumn haze about them that just work pretty well just within that pitch. But this is actually a rather, it's not necessarily dark in terms of like sheerly just like gothic, but I would have to say it just has like a flavor, just like the aspect of just being like, and say it's just mildly grim. I just would say within the tone, it just really has that melodrama type feel that just works within a theater aspect and just being able to nail. I like the melodrama flavor about this particular album, just like the aspect of just being able to nail that. As something that like when you get like the dramatic type feel, it just feels like something you get in like a theater play, and it just feels like that's not something that pop artists kind of do as much nowadays. You get the tone behind it, it's just more face value. I said what I said type pitches, and just it is what it is type pitches. But I just like the concept of like Celine Dion particularly doing this pretty highlightedly well. It's just a little bit more like sultry just within the pitch, a little bit more steely, I'd have to say. But I do like the concept behind it. So yeah, but that's the basic tone about this project. So talk about some of these songs on here. Basically, most of these other songs that I didn't recommend on here, Let's Talk About Love, I Hate You Then I Love You, some of these type of ones. Where Is the Love, some of these type of ones. Just or Where Is the Love, some of these type of one. Where Is the Love, some of these type of ones. Love Is on the Way. These are just kind of more down tempo type ones that just kind of have the tone of just being more as standard songs. It's like the concept, if you do like the song The Reason, they're just clones that particular song to some of those type pitches. They're just more slow jam type S type ones, just in a 90s R&B ballad type flavor. But the album is really packed to the gills with filled with some of these. It kind of comes out. It's actually more of like a 90s R&B type album, more so than pop within a sense. But a lot of these slow jams, I feel like when the production fare is just not quite as enamoring, I'd have to say it's just kind of the concept. I feel like some of these, if they had the production flavor of like Us or Amar Haciendo El Amor, some of those type pitches, just a little bit of Evening Gospel, I probably would have enjoyed those a lot more. Or even like the darkly tinged kind of dance pop of like appeal of like Just a Little Bit of Love, I'd say those are some of the best moments that kind of have like some relative groove about them. But I just feel like some of these were just more vanilla. I feel like some of these were just more 90s kind of ballad type fare that just didn't really have enough flair about them, I'd have to say. But I do like a lot. I also like the ghostly type of appeal. I also like the looming kind of appeal of My Heart Will Go On and Immortality. Those are some nice snap ones. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and give this album, me recommending 8 songs out of 16 on here. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 6 out of 10. I mean, I really like the appeal behind this project. Like I said, this is one of the highest selling albums of all time, just worldwide pitches like that. Real big deal, 90s staple, very iconic pitches like that. But this kind of concept, there's just a few more ballads stuffed on this project more than there need to be. I look after the social score. That's kind of tricky. I think I'll give the social score like a 7 out of 10. I feel like the aspect behind this album, the thing is kind of haphazard because it did have a vast number one of the biggest songs. Definitely, when you think of the 90s, this is a good song to dig up when you want to think of 90s culture. My Heart Will Go On. But most of the other songs off this album just didn't chart that heavily. And out of 6 singles, the fact that only one of them charted, I mean, mind you, it did hit number one. And this is kind of the concept that it just kind of felt like this album kind of got slighted a little bit. But I look after it, it did go diamond pitches like that, and it does have some social snap. But in terms of like if you're not looking for adult contemporary type stuff, it's just kind of here and there. I do feel like some of the ones like Us, the Amar Haciendo El Amor songs are good relative contemporariness. Just a Little Bit of Love is definitely contemporary. I feel like Immortality is kind of an overlooked kind of song that's very similar to My Heart Will Go On. It's like a good 1-2 punch with that. And the singles, most of the singles are pretty good within that tone, but that's just kind of the thing about it. Just have to say, I mean, it's good stuff. It's just kind of constant. You just have to be able to dissect the ones just within the tone of like the flavor, what goes on. But this is kind of, I feel like Celine Dion is just a different flavor of like 90s pop than what has melded with today's culture and aspects behind that. I have to say, so it's just a good concept kind of dig some of these up. I look after in terms of the future, like Celine Dion, I'm not sure when the last album she put out kind of was. Like I said, she's been having health problems and pitches like that, so we want to get her back into doing some of these type things, just some of that standard fare. I look after it. Yeah, I do want to review like her '96 albums and pitches like that, just to see about that particular appeal, and it doesn't have like a Titanic movie helping, and it doesn't have like a Titanic movie help to kind of bolster to see if wondering if that particularly helped bolster this album sales, but we'll have to see about it this in particular. But yeah, this is relatively rock solid album here, just within the pitch. Definitely a big deal, and definitely has some hauntingness that just really had like some good appeals and overall jive about it. That just has some great melodrama and pitches like that.